After claiming back the Premier League title last season, Pep Guardiola's side want to push on again, so here are 5 transfer moves that they could be making this summer. The first one is a pretty obvious one because everybody keeps on talking about it, and it's Jack Grealish coming into the club from Aston Villa. Now, in the last few days, it looks as though they are in direct contact with each other over a deal that could cost upwards of £88 million for the Aston Villa captain. They don't want to lose him, which means they're going to offer him a brand new deal, just 1 year on from his last deal, but it looks as though Manchester City could offer so much more, not only in weekly wages, but also in the quality of the squad, the Champions League, and the trophies that they're potentially going to win. Now, there were a few stumbling blocks in this deal, and one of them is actually quite realistic from Jack Grealish. He was a little bit worried about his playing time. And when you look at the rest of the City attacking line, you can see why. It looks as though the likes of Raheem Sterling and Riyad Mahrez are going to stay at the club. There's also Bernardo Silva, there's also Phil Foden, Ferran Torres, Gabriel Jesus. Where is Jack Grealish going to fit into this squad? Aston Villa, he plays on that left-hand side. I would say he's probably going to play more as a number 10 for Manchester City, but they don't really play a number 10. It'll be rather interesting to see what they do because we know that City go far in competitions, especially the cup competitions. They're obviously going to be challenging for the Premier League title, and yes, when you're in all 4 competitions for the majority of the season, you do need a big squad, and it helps them to put out a fresh quality team every 3 days or whenever they'll be playing. It's just not really great if you're a new player like Jack Grealish who goes from playing every week and being a big fish in a small pond at Aston Villa to having to be a bit part player at Manchester City. I'm sure when the conversations happen with Pep Guardiola, he'll be sold on the idea that he'll be playing lots, and you'll hope that Pep Guardiola will stick to that and give Grealish the game time that he wants. Having said this though, even if they can't quite come to a complete agreement, I'm still sure that eventually Grealish will make the move. So number 2 on this transfer moves is one out the door at Manchester City, and that is Gabriel Jesus. Now, he's been linked with Juventus for quite some time now, but it doesn't look as though he'll be leaving, but I really think that Manchester City might need to let him go. And the reason being is that clearly he's not trusted to be the successor to Aguero. Like, Aguero left this summer, and there's all this talk about them signing a replacement striker. And even when Aguero was out for the majority of the season, Jesus wasn't even a definite starter for every single game. Guardiola moved the team around somewhat. He played a false 9 sometimes. He played one of the wingers through the middle. Ferran Torres, I think, started most Champions League games through the middle, despite the fact that Jesus was there. Raheem Sterling often found himself in that position, and Phil Foden as well. If Jesus cannot be trusted to be the number 1 striker once Aguero has left, or when there's no other option, it's not really necessary keeping him around. I know he's a good squad player to have, and I think if he wants to stay at Manchester City, they'll happily take him in the squad because he's a quality striker that they can bring in. But for his own career, if he wants to be number 1 striker somewhere, it may be away from the Etihad. On top of all of this, if they do let him go, then I'm sure Manchester City could charge rather good fee for him. That will be necessary because if, like I mentioned, they're going to bring in Jack Grealish, they're going to need a bit more money if they're to bring in the next person on this list. And that is because number 3 on this list is bringing another player in, and it's Harry Kane. Now, I mentioned the money that potentially could be raised from Gabriel Jesus, and Manchester City need to do that if they're going to sign Grealish and Kane. Both of them together could cost upwards of £225 million. On top of all of this, there's some big wage packets to go along with it as well. The transfer of Harry Kane looks to be a very, very complicated one. Kane looks like he wants a Manchester City move. Manchester City want Harry Kane, so that's the good part of the deal, but Tottenham don't want to let him go. On top of all of this, there's rumours that they're going to have to offer a load of money, up to 120 million plus a couple of players in return. Maybe Jesus could be part of that deal. Anyway, this is the sort of deal that would really break the bank and really set Manchester City apart from so many other teams in the Premier League, signing the best striker in the Premier League. It looks like I mentioned, a very complicated deal, but if they can get it over the line, their attack would just be ridiculous. I mean, we speak about them having to rejig the tactic, play a wider player through the middle now that Aguero's gone and Jesus isn't in the team all the time. Harry Kane fits that role perfectly with the likes of Foden, Sterling, Mahrez, Bernardo Silva, everyone mentioned before, Kevin De Bruyne putting balls in for him. It will be so easy for Kane to get on the end of it and probably score 30, 40 goals a season, no worries. On top of all of this, they're going to offer him a major wage packet, apparently around £350,000 per week, which is 150k more per week than he currently earns at Tottenham. How does he survive? Anyway, this will be a massive deal, and Pep Guardiola ideally wants to get this done before the start of the season, but I'm not so sure this is going to happen. Everything will hinge on the next couple of days as Harry Kane returns from holiday after being part of England's Euro 2020 squad. The next one is another transfer out of there, and this one is a rather contentious decision, and that is because it's Aymeric Laporte. Now, in my opinion, he's one of the best defenders, not only in the Premier League, but probably in Europe as well, certainly top 10. But the truth of the matter is, Ruben Dias is better than him, and John Stones has come into a sensational run of form, so much so that Laporte has lost his place in the first team. Now, actually, much like I mentioned with Jack Grealish as well, for Manchester City, having a player the quality of Aymeric Laporte on the bench, someone to bring in if a player's injured or if they just need a break with all their hectic scheduling they've got going on, it's great for them. They'll be more than happy to have a second 11 of stars who are just as good as the first and can probably still beat most of the teams in the Premier League. But obviously, Laporte is not going to settle for playing one in every 2 or 3 games. There have been rumours that if Barcelona can put some money together from selling the likes of Longley and from Samuel Umtiti as well, they'll be looking to bring the former Bilbao star in. But I don't see their finances being in order enough to not only bring him in from Manchester City, but pay his wages as well. They've got enough trouble registering some of the players they want to bring back, like Lionel Messi. Anyway, as for Manchester City, like I mentioned, they could do with him, but they could also do with a bit of money that comes from selling him. At the moment, I think Diaz and Stones, like I mentioned, are ahead of him, but imagine one of them gets injured. And then they're left with no one because they sold Eric Garcia as well. They didn't sell him, he left to Barcelona. I don't really think this would be the strongest move, but if they need some money, he could definitely be one of those who's in that space where he could raise enough and they aren't selling one of their key players. And finally then, with these 5 transfer moves, we've had 2 ins, we've had 2 outs. The last one is an in. And it's someone who's not really talked about much in a transfer, despite the fact he is, in my opinion, the best defensive midfielder in the Premier League, and it's Leicester's Wilfried Ndidi. Manchester City are going to need to find a replacement for Fernandinho sooner rather than later. They've offered the club captain a new 1-year deal that runs until next summer, but eventually they're going to have to phase him out of the team. When he plays, he still does a brilliant job. And in my opinion, I don't quite think Rodri is the same sort of player. Fernandinho is far better at winning the ball back at interceptions and getting around the pitch, whereas Rodri is more of a nice passing, fluidity, tempo controlling player. And it doesn't necessarily help Manchester City in every single game. So the perfect mix of the two moving forward could be 24-year-old Wilfried Ndidi, who's just absolutely brilliant. Last season, he managed over 4 tackles per game and over 2 interceptions per game in that midfield area, way more than Rodri and Fernandinho managed, and I just think moving forward, the club have got to make an effort to sign him. The one issue in this deal is that Leicester are very stubborn, and good on them. Any team now knows that if you want to go to Leicester and bid for one of their players, it is going to cost a monumental amount of money. Manchester City know that because of Riyad Mahrez. Manchester United definitely know that because of how much it cost them to get Harry Maguire away from the King Power Stadium. Arsenal have found out that it's going to cost them over 70 million to bring in James Maddison. And Lord knows what would happen if they try to sign any other of their players. If you go to Leicester wanting any of their players, including Wilfried Ndidi, Manchester City better turn up with a rather large briefcase full of cash. Of course, we've mentioned 3 ins in this video on Grealish, Kane and Ndidi, and I don't think they're going to be able to sign them all, certainly not without letting a few go first. So there you have it. You guys let me know your thoughts below on who you'd sign and who you'd let go at Manchester City. Check out everything else we've got going on, and until next time, I will see you guys later.